The grocery store was bustling with the chaos of Thanksgiving week. Carts rattled, children whined, and the air smelled faintly of cinnamon and roasted coffee. David Turner, a man whose name appeared on the covers of business magazines, was standing in line with his 7-year-old son, Ethan, distractedly scrolling through emails on his phone. He barely noticed the world around him anymore. Meetings, deals, deadlines, and numbers had become the rhythm of his life. But then, something happened that snapped him out of it. Ethan tugged at his father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, she can't buy a turkey." David looked up, confused. Ethan's big brown eyes were fixed on the woman in front of them. She was young, maybe mid-30s, wearing a faded coat with torn cuffs. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke to the cashier. "Can you take the turkey off?" she asked quietly, voice breaking. Just the bread and milk, please." The cashier nodded without meeting her eyes, voiding the item. The woman gave a forced smile, but her little girl, no older than 5, looked up at the counter with disappointment. David felt his chest tighten. He'd seen poverty before, on screens, in charity events, on donation drives. But this was different. This was right in front of him. Ethan tugged his sleeve again. "Daddy, why can't she buy it? Don't they have enough money?" David swallowed hard. He didn't know how to explain it. He didn't know why a woman had to choose between feeding her child and saving a few dollars. When the woman gathered her small bag of groceries and hurried out, David followed her without thinking. "Sir," Ethan said, confused, jogging after him. Outside, the wind was biting. The woman was walking quickly, holding her daughter's hand. "Excuse me," David called out. She turned, startled. "You forgot your turkey," he said softly, holding out the one he just purchased from the store. Her eyes widened. "Oh no, I can't, please," he said, placing it gently into her cart. "It's just, from one parent to another. Happy Thanksgiving." Tears welled in her eyes. "You have no idea what this means," she whispered. Her daughter hugged the turkey like it was a treasure. That night, David couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Ethan slept beside him. The words echoed in his mind. "She can't buy a turkey." For the first time in years, he realized how detached he'd become. He'd built a business empire, but forgotten the real weight of compassion. He thought of his own childhood, how his mother once cried because she couldn't pay rent. He had vowed to make sure he'd never be poor again, but somewhere in his climb, he had stopped looking down. The next morning, David made a decision that would change not only his life, but the lives of hundreds of families. The following week, instead of attending a shareholders' meeting, David showed up at the old community center in town, a place he hadn't visited in decades. The paint was peeling, the floors were cracked, and the shelves in the attached food pantry were nearly empty. He met the coordinator, an older woman named Margaret, who seemed exhausted but kind. "We do what we can," she said with a weary smile, "but the need keeps growing, especially around the holidays." David looked around at the bare shelves. "How many families do you help?" "About 70, maybe more when winter hits." David nodded slowly, his mind already spinning. "What if we made sure no one in this town went hungry this Thanksgiving?" Margaret blinked. "That would take a miracle." "Then let's make one," he said. Over the next few days, David used his wealth, his connections, and his voice. He called his employees, his friends, and even his competitors. He asked for donations, volunteers, trucks, anything that could help. At first, people were skeptical. A billionaire giving away food didn't make headlines anymore. But David wasn't doing this for headlines. He worked alongside volunteers, loading boxes, sorting canned goods, lifting heavy crates until his hands blistered. Ethan was there, too, proudly handing out apples to families who came by. When the big day came, the community center transformed into a beacon of hope. Tables were piled high with turkeys, vegetables, pies, and warm blankets. Families lined up, some in tears, some in disbelief. Music played softly in the background, and the smell of roasted turkey filled the air. David watched it all, his chest tight with emotion. Margaret approached him with tears in her eyes. "You've done something incredible here," she said. He shook his head. "We did, all of us." Just then, the same woman from the grocery store appeared, holding her daughter's hand. She smiled shyly. "I heard about this on the radio. I didn't know it was you," she said. David smiled back. "I should be thanking you. You reminded me what really matters." Her daughter ran up and hugged Ethan. "Happy Thanksgiving," she chirped. And for the first time in years, David felt something warm and unshakable: peace. Months passed, but David didn't stop there. The Thanksgiving drive turned into a year-round initiative, the Table Project. It provided food, job training, and financial support to struggling families. David invested not just his money, but his time. He met with families, listened to their stories, and learned their names. The world took notice. Media outlets covered it, yes, but that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that in small towns across the state, no child went to bed hungry, and it all started with a simple, innocent sentence from a little boy in a grocery store: "She can't buy a turkey." Years later, when David was asked in an interview what the turning point in his life had been, he smiled thoughtfully. "It wasn't a business deal," he said. "It was something my son said in a grocery store line. Sometimes it takes a child to remind you how to be human again." He looked at the camera, eyes glistening. "Success isn't measured by what you have. It's measured by what you give. The day I learned that, my life truly began." Moral of the story: true wealth isn't found in your bank account, it's found in your heart. Sometimes, a single act of kindness can ripple through countless lives, reminding the world that compassion still has the power to change everything.